Welcome back to this live stream of City and State TV from the 26th annual conference of SOMOS El Futuro in Puerto Rico, San Juan, right now at the Condado Plaza. And as part of not only the legislators gathering from both the Assembly majority and from the Senate in terms of the elected officials from New York State, we also have people from New York City, community activists, people that are engaged in different parts of the communities, from education to housing, but also people who are filmmakers. We happen to have a filmmaker from El Barrio, Andrew Padilla, who actually also, you founded El Barrio Tours. So welcome to City and State TV, and tell us what was your purpose. I think it's the first time that you attend the conference, right?
It's the first time.
So you're from El Barrio, born and raised there, still living there, of Puerto Rican parents. What is it that made you come here to the SOMOS Fall Conference in San Juan?
Well, the film that I did, El Barrio Tours, Gentrification in East Harlem, was me trying to figure out what was going on in my community and begin making connections between us, try to information share and understand, why is it that our community was being displaced? What was causing gentrification? Why is it the right for us to remain in our homes, in our communities, was being questioned? And SOMOS, from what I had heard in the past, was all about bridging connections between La Isla, between Latinos from all across New York State. And so I know that there's differing opinions as to where it is now and where it might be going, but I know that there's still an infrastructure there that can be very useful for making those connections. And so I wanted to take the piece on El Barrio and show it here, because I know that members here, be they legislative, be they union members, citizens, what have you, here have seen gentrification displacement happen in every single one of their communities. And so wanted to information share on that, talk about why it's happened, where we are now, where we could go, and also talk about the larger nationwide project we're doing to cover that across the country. Because a lot of the issues that are causing displacement in our communities, it's global markets and federal policy. And so we're trying to wrap all that up somehow in an hour and a half.
From the point of view of a place, a part, the east side of Harlem in Manhattan, but certainly we have seen what you're talking about, the concerns you have manifested itself in East Harlem and El Barrio in terms of gentrification. You had a panel in which there were different people coming at the problem of gentrification, identifying, but also coming up with solutions. Out of the panel that was held today, what is it that you feel that is the takeaway from that? Did you learn anything in the process? You obviously have done more research, you've documented this, you've come up with a film version of this. What is it that, is there a chance that this could somehow be stopped? I mean, El Barrio, it's primo real estate. It's an island like Puerto Rico, but a very expensive island to live on. So,
The island también. Milk is like $6 a gallon here.
Right, I know. So they're both expensive, but in the case of what you call home now, what is it that what's your takeaway from this panel? The conversations you've had with elected officials? Is there a plan? Should there be an agenda item as part of what they come out of here and taking as a solution, or ways to sort of stem off the gentrification process that's been going on for a long time?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the main takeaway that I hear from a lot of these conversations, we always say change is inevitable. Right. Obvio. But what change, right? Like, that things will change is inevitable, but how it changes, for whom, by whom, who benefits, who loses, those are all choices and decisions. And so I think there was a real consciousness in the room that most of the decisions being made about our communities are not being made by our communities. We had people there. I mean, luckily we still have a lot of knowledge here, right? So people who used to be in city planning coming in and talking about how those decisions are made, and how there's a very small group of people that get that access and the rest of us are without it. So I mean, in terms of what we can do going forward, I think we need to stop subsidizing the process, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the dialogue that we're having in New York went from with Bloomberg, right, where something's gonna happen and we'll have a public meeting, it's gonna happen anyway. With de Blasio, something's gonna happen, but how it's gonna happen, now we have engagement. We went from a process that we didn't make with no engagement to a plan that we didn't make with no engagement, to a plan that we didn't make with engagement. But we're still not making the plan. That's coming from planning, and then that's coming from higher. So I think that there was a real consciousness in the room that we need to do things structurally differently. Real estate is the biggest contributor to our political campaigns. That's a fact. Can't win an election in this city, in this state, without real estate money. that affects our policy. That's why, in terms of housing, we are talking about how much more to subsidize market rate housing, how much more to subsidize, as opposed to saying, no, yeah, if it's not going to be affordable, why are we going to subsidize someone's private development on their private land and hope we get a tiny little piece? That's just begging. And in verdad, it's not our building and it's not our land. We need to be in a position where we are actually creating true affordable housing. And I don't think that public housing is a bad model. I know people say that there is no more funding, right? Because the federal government took their money out. The state government took their money out. But the reason why I'm in the position I'm in, the reason why I'm in the middle class, the reason why I'm able to come to SOMOS today is because all of my family came through public housing.
So your point is in subsidizing. If there's going to be any subsidizing done, let it not be for private developers, but rather for the communities that are affected by this gentrification that has been going on.
Yeah, because there's no money coming from the state, right, for public housing. There isn't. But the state wants to spend like, what, $3 billion to expand the 2nd Avenue subway? And in East Harlem, a community where only 7% of the people own.
Right.
What happened to those people on 2nd Avenue up through 96? Their businesses closed, people got kicked out, the rents went up. Why would that be any different for East Harlem? So there is money. That's always been the narrative, and that's what we tried to say there. Siempre, oh, no hay dinero.
There is money.
There's no money for us, right? There's no money for certain people, but there's money for other things. And you can't tell me that, oh, we've got to scrape by every year to come together with a little bit of money to keep this community center open and maybe subsidize this project, but who knows, it's not viable. But then all of a sudden, we're going to talk about getting $3 billion for a subway that we know is going to raise stuff. So I think that the consciousness that came out of there is that this is not accidental. This is not a mythical genie. This isn't market forces that are beyond us, right? These are choices and decisions. And it seems mythical and it seems outside of us because usually we're not in those spaces. And so a lot of times people will talk to our people in community board members, or you'll have reporters come in and they'll be like, oh, these people in the projects of the community board que no saben lo que está diciendo, right? They'll be like, oh, okay, they're paranoid or they're nervous. Well, they might not have the exact words to explain what's happening, but that's a lack of access. But they do have the consciousness to know that the plans that are coming down were not made by them and do not have their intentions at heart. And I think that there is a lot of that consciousness in New York, and I think we need to tap into that.
Here in San Juan, we're in Condado Plaza Hilton. We have all these legislators, and not just Puerto Rican Latinos. We have all kinds of legislators from the New York State Legislature. Have you been able to speak to them and tell them, guys, you're the ones that are doing this, the subsidies, the stuff that you're doing can be stopped? What's the reaction if you have engaged them?
I think the general reaction has been, I think, and this came up in the panel as well, there is to some extent a lack of vision, and I think that there's also a real fear, right? Because I mean, a lot of these forces are structurally bigger than us.
Fear of what?
Well, in our communities, right, we always look at like the local elected and think that they are the Don. And people criticize me in my film for not going after Speaker Viverito, for not going after Charlie Rangel. And they're like, why didn't you go after individual politicians? And I'm like, well, because the forces that they have to deal with are bigger than them. They're the big fish in our small pond. But in the big pond, there's small fish. You know, that's why Charlie Rangel got censured. And I'm not saying that he didn't do things that were wrong. However, what happened? The last guy who got censured in Congress 27 years ago, what was it, for treason or sexual assault? That's crazy. There's a structural inequity. And so I think that we need to move towards addressing structural inequities, but I think that there's a fear of doing that, right? Of actually saying, no, we're gonna stop things right where they are. And we are going to do this for our communities and not for someone else, because that means you lose money, your opponents get money, right? I lose donations, my opponents get donations, and that's tough.
So you're a filmmaker, you research this. Give me the script that you would give the SOMOS conference, the 2014 Fall SOMOS conference coming out of San Juan. What would be the script? The one, give me a what do you call it in the film? A treatment. Give me a treatment that you would give them.
A treatment. Well, I think we need a lot more youth here. I mean, even in the panel I had, I didn't have anyone younger. Hell yeah.
Can you define youth?
Oh, I don't know.
Because you're young to me, but I don't think you're talking about people younger.
No, I'm 24, but there are people who are younger than me that are doing a lot more than me, and I think that we need to.
But you are talking about people in their 20s.
people in their 20s, people in their teens, I think that we need to engage them because we're here having this conversation and there's a lot of important information. There was a lot of people there who have had access in the past, but we need to have those frank conversations. And so in terms of like a one-liner, I think for the next time, we need to have an agenda, and we kept talking about the right to remain. If we're talking about housing as a commodity, as a market commodity, then honestly, there's not a lot we can do. We can hopefully subsidize here, we can hopefully have some regulations here, pero no podemos hacer tanto. But if we recognize it as a human right, if we recognize it and take it very seriously in that way, like the UN does, then we are in a different place. We're in a different conversation, that this is a right. We have the right to remain in our communities. The reason why my family came to El Barrio is because of, this wasn't magic. There were economic policies in Puerto Rico that instead of Puerto Rico making the turn to develop its own economy, did everything it could to bring in outside business. But that required a large part of their population leaving. Is that not what New York did to rehab its economy? Is that not what we're still doing? Is that not what Puerto Rico's doing, doubling down? Like 100% tax break if you want to have a resort in Vieques or Culebra. But if you go to the Malecón, 15 out of the 17 businesses on the Malecón are white American owned. Only one is from San Juan, and then the other one is a Viequense. That's it. So how do we want to develop our economy? I don't think anyone's against economic development, but we need to be very intentional about whose economy we're developing and be very honest and unafraid, because our communities, in terms of, how do we engage people in the process? Our communities are waiting for that. Our communities want honesty.
Again, do you feel that that message was understood? Will it be part of what they take back? Are you going to be following up, you yourself? Are you going to go to Albany come the spring of 2015? Are you going to follow up on this? Are you encouraged by what you see? Or is it just another gathering of guys who have titles and some legislative power who are not going to do anything to change the system?
I think anytime that you are able to connect people from La Isla and the city, that there's hope, there's opportunity in that. And so I hope, especially as all these rent control, rent stabilization laws, right, especially as that's coming up in this legislative session, the time to put pressure is now. So I do have confidence that something will happen. Where it happens, I don't know. I don't know if it'll be in this room. I don't know if it'll be these legislators that are leading it. But I know that there are people in El Barrio, I know there are people in the South Bronx, I know there are people in Brooklyn that are fighting. The other day, DCP was trying to do it. They want to do a rezoning between Yankee Stadium, the world's most famous baseball stadium, Kingsbridge Armory, to be the world's biggest hockey stadium in a borough where no one skates. And in the middle, city planning wants to do a wide-scale rezoning. And these wide-scale rezonings are key for de Blasio's housing plan. So what happened? A couple young people got out there and stopped the tour. They didn't ask permission. They didn't, deliberate. They were like, you know what? We know the plan didn't come from us. And we've seen how this has happened in other places. And maybe we don't have all the language, and maybe we didn't go to all the schools, but you know what, at the end of the day, the ones que estaban luchando and the ones that started this conference, they did it because they knew it was time to act. And so I think that if we approach things in that way, we'll be better for it.
Andrew Padilla with El Barrio Tours, and really a lot to say. At the young age of 24, you certainly see a lot of old timers here, people that probably had the opportunity and haven't done much. So maybe you'll be part of the change. Thank you so much, Padilla.
There's a lot to learn here. And also, if you want to learn more about the tour, we've been to 15 cities throughout the country. So, we're going to 15.
How do you access it?
So just Google El Barrio Tours, and all the information
El Barrio Tours.
El Barrio Tours, Google it. And we've been to half the cities across the country that have asked us to come and do workshops on gentrification. And we're trying to do a project that covers, what is this phenomena nationwide? How can we connect and learn from each other? Because we're at different parts of the process, but we're reinventing the wheel and we're putting out fires. And so we need to begin connecting. And that's what's great about this conference. And I hope that next year it moves towards being more agenda driven, and that the right to remain in our communities is a serious part of it.
Great points by Andrew Padilla. I'm Gerson Borrero for City and State TV from San Juan at the SOMOS conference, the 26th fall conference of SOMOS. We'll be right back with you, more live streaming from the conference of 2014 of the New York State Legislature.